Part 76. Back to the 60s, The Struggle Career of a Charmed Wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 751. Gu Hong left with a smile and came back with a smile. Her attitude was particularly attentive. I heard that there was a fat and white baby in this compartment, which was very annoying. Several conductors who were on good terms with Gu Hong and were resting couldn't help but come over with their lunch boxes to take a look. The berth where they were resting was also there. In this carriage. On long-distance trains, conductors are on staggered duty, and everyone has a certain amount of rest time 24 hours a day. The more people there are, the more excited Zibao becomes. He calls out sister to the left and sister to the right. It's so sweet. The result is that you feed me a mouthful, I feed you a mouthful, and he pats his belly and says, I'm full. The little guy is full of energy, and the small sleeper box cannot trap him at all. After dinner, the conductors gradually dispersed. Zibao took Feng Qingxiu's hand and walked out. Mom, play. Feng Qingxiu only had time to tell her aunt to take care of her daughter, before she was pulled out by her son. The little guy eats more and grows stronger, and his hands are very strong. After leaving the box, he let go of his hand and ran up and down the aisle where no one was walking. Occasionally, he would lie down at the door of other boxes and look in, but he did not stop until Feng Qingxiu heard that he was skillful. He greeted the passengers in one of the boxes. Grandpa, Grandma, let's play with the baby. Feng Qingxiu, who had finally followed her son, saw a 60-year-old woman in the box who was not young, neatly groomed, and very elegant in manners, sitting and talking to her husband who was sitting on the berth opposite. When she saw the door, the little baby next to him immediately burst into laughter. Hey, whose little baby is this? He's so fat and cute. Come here and let Grandma see. What's your name? Baby, Zibao replied, pointing to his nose, and stepped in without any politeness at all. He twisted his fat buttocks and came to the old woman. He put his two chubby hands on her knees and raised his face. She cried sweetly, Grandma. Facing such a festive doll, no one can resist, especially the elderly. The old woman smiled and said, You call me baby? You are so good. Then tell Grandma, what is your last name? From the Lu family, Zibao has not forgotten his ancestors. The old man next to him closed the book in his hand, pushed up the glasses on the bridge of his nose, and couldn't help laughing. Hey, you know your surname is Lu? This is a good surname. You and Grandpa have the same surname, so we must be a family. Grandpa, my name is Lu Xiaonan, and my grandma's name is Lin Yufen. What's your dad's name? What's your mom's name? Can you tell me? He knows this. His grandfather teaches him every day. Zibao said proudly, Father Lu Zhang, Mother Feng Xiu, Sister Fat Yat. My sister, Fat Baby, Fat Yat. After saying that, he waved his hands again and said, No, Grandpa, Grandpa's name is Ziwen. Your grandfather's name is Lu Ziwen, Lu Xiaonan asked. Zibao nodded happily, Yeah. Grandpa Ziwen. Lin Yufen praised, You're so good, and you have such a good memory. What's your name? Just Lu Bao Bao. Baby, Zibao said, making a big arc with his fat hand, Big baby. While Feng Qingxiu apologized to her elders for disturbing Zibao, she said to her son, Zibao, tell your grandparents that your name is Lu Tianmao and Lu Zibao, the land of the sea, land, and air. Mao Mao, Zibao really listened. Lu Xiaonan, on the other hand, said regretfully, We are not on the same road. We are on opposite sides of the road. Back to the 60s, The Struggle Career of a Charmed Wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 752. Is there a road? Zibao looked down at his feet, pointed at the ground he was stepping on and said to Lu Xiaonan, Grandpa, there is a road. Lu Xiaonan was stunned for a moment, then smiled and said, "Yes, the road is what your feet step on. There is no road in the world. We all walk up and down on it and we create a path. Zibao is really smart." Zibao understood the last sentence and nodded without humility, "The baby is very smart." Feng Qingxiu covered her face, the brat was really not ashamed. Lin Yufan pulled Feng Qingxiu to sit down. "Sitting and talking, standing is very tiring, and my neck hurts from leaning back." Zibao didn't need anyone to remind him. He climbed onto Lin Yufan's berth and dangled his feet outside. "Mom, shoes." "Zibao, your feet are so smelly, don't take off your shoes." Hearing Feng Qingxiu's words, Zibao was not happy. He rubbed his 2 feet against each other, kicked off his shoes, and actually stretched a fat foot in front of Feng Qingxiu's face. "Mom, the baby doesn't stink." This fat foot was quickly slapped back by Feng Qingxiu. "You brat." Lu Xiaonan and Lin Yufan laughed happily, "This kid is really interesting." Zibao hugged his fat feet and crawled inside with his mouth flat, lying on his back. "Baby, let's sleep." "You just slept before dinner, are you sleepy now?" Feng Qingxiu turned sideways, took him directly into her arms, and let him sit on her lap. No one knew Zibao better than him, and there was nowhere to vent his energy. "Tonight I have to stay up with him until after 10 o'clock. Zibao smiled at Lu Xiaonan, then smiled at Lin Yufan, stretched out his arm. "Grandma, give me a hug." Lin Yufan's heart turned to water. Okay, Grandma will hug you." "He is very fat," Feng Qingxiu said. The 2 elderly people are both extremely thin, so how could they bear the weight of Zibao, who weighed almost 40 pounds with his clothes? Lin Yufan said, "How much does such a small person weigh?" "Don't worry, I can carry him." Zibao sat on Lin Yufan's lap and rested his head on her chest. "Grandma, the baby loves you." Lu Xiaonan was drinking water from an enamel jar. With a pop, he quickly turned his head and sprayed the water onto the ground next to him. He coughed violently. "Little guy, who taught you this?" Feng Qingxiu's eyes widened for a moment, and her face turned red. Lin Yufan smiled happily. "Oh, this little mouth is so sweet, as if it's covered with honey." Feng Qingxiu was speechless, this brat was invincible. "Who are the 2 old people in front of me?" Feng Qingxiu knew the identity of Lu Xiaonan, the master of academic circles, when he heard Lu Xiaonan announce his name. Zibao actually made the 2 old people smile. However, the outcome for these 2 old men was not good. A few years later, unable to withstand the torture and humiliation, they committed suicide at the same time. How can we save these 2 people? Who wouldn't be sad for an old man who was originally devoted to academic work and whose family background was very poor, but ended up like that? "Professor Lu, Professor Lin, where are you 2 going?" Feng Qingxiu was the first to speak. Lu Xiaonan and Lin Yufan were stunned when they heard this, and the latter asked, "Do you recognize us?" Feng Qingxiu smiled and said, "I have read the foreign masterpieces you translated. I have admired your talent for a long time. You have been teaching in the capital, but we are in the border defense force, thousands of miles away, and we have no chance to meet. Today it's a coincidence that I met you and Professor Lu here, thanks to Zibao's interruption. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 753. No one doesn't like to hear compliments about themselves. Lu Xiaonan and Lin Yufan smiled even more happily, and looked at Feng Qingxiu with very soft eyes. Of course, the ones looking at Zibao were even more loving. "I didn't expect you to recognize us just by our names." This showed that Feng Qingxiu knew them very well. After Lin Yufan said this, she continued, "Border Defense Force, judging from your dress, Are you a medical soldier? Yes, my mission some time ago was in the capital, and I gave birth to a baby in the capital for confinement. This time I returned to the army from the capital, and my destination was the plateau area. Where are you and Professor Lu going? Feng Qingxiu also asked. The second elder was curious about his itinerary. Lin Yufan didn't hide it. We are going back to our hometown to visit, so we have to get off the bus a few days before you. Although we got off the bus a few days early, there will be many opportunities to get along with each other in the future. Probably because of a rapport, Zibao went to the box of Lu Xiaoneng and Lin Yufan every day. His grandparents called him so cute that he even refused to leave when the two elders were resting. Sometimes, Wang Fengqiao felt very jealous. This little Zibao doesn't even play with me. However, the heavy responsibility of taking care of Fubao fell on her. Feng Qingxiu was embarrassed. Auntie, please be patient. After such a trip to the capital, Zibao simply started to make a lot of friends. Not only Lu Xiaoneng and Lin Yufan, the little guy got to know several other passengers, including men, women, and children. He would shout out to grandparents, brothers, and sisters, and when he was happy, he would give out some candies to everyone and sweeten their mouths. He was loved by everyone. The passengers on the sleeper berth were either big figures like Lu Xiaoneng, Lin Yufan, or cotters. No one was simple. Sleeper tickets are very expensive and most people are reluctant to take them. Even third-line workers and border guards are reluctant to spend their wages on this. In order to save money, many people would rather send their wages home to support their families instead of going home themselves. Zibao speaks more and more fluently, can express himself clearly, and always makes people laugh. Kui Hongbin recovered a lot before getting off the bus. He was supported by his grandson and said goodbye to Feng Qingxiu. Zibao was sitting on the berth eating a can. He opened his mouth and called his grandfather and brother, and stretched out the can. Thank you, Zibao. Grandpa won't eat it, so Zibao will eat it. Kui Hongbin already knew Zibao's name. When Zibao heard that he didn't want to eat, he immediately retracted his hand and continued burying his head. Feng Qingxiu hurriedly asked Kui Hongbin to sit down and rest. Kui Hongbin shook his head. No, I just came to say something to Comrade Feng. We will get off the bus in half an hour. I wish you a safe journey in the rest of your trip. If you have a chance to meet again, if my old man is fine, then I will definitely invite Comrade Feng and your revolutionary partner to have dinner together. Eating is a trivial matter. If you are safe and sound in your old age, I will be relieved when you return to the army. Every doctor hopes that his patients will be safe and sound, free from illness and disaster. It will be safe, it will be, no matter what, I deserve Comrade Feng's help. Zibao liked Kui Zhizhong very much. When the train stopped and his grandson got off the train, Zibao actually wanted to get off the train with them, dragging Feng Qingxiu to follow. Several passengers who got off at the station were shocked. Then he laughed. Let's go, Zibao, go to my sister's house. There is delicious food at my sister's house. Zibao, come with me, I'll treat you to a big meal. Zibao, I have little brothers and sisters at home to play with you. How about you come with me? Unexpectedly, in the face of everyone's enthusiasm, Zibao suddenly climbed into Feng Qingxiu's arms and let her hold her. He shook his head and said to them, No, no, bye, let's go. The monthly ticket difference is 1,000 votes to surpass the previous one. Ask for votes. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 754. Someone got off the train, and naturally someone got on. There were only two people in the sleeper car. Zibao suddenly pointed at one of the military green figures and shouted, Uncle. Everyone was in a hurry to get on and off the car. Although it was noisy, it was not as clear and loud as Zibao's voice. The military green figure immediately looked over, Feng Qingxiu looked over at the same time and couldn't help shouting, Gao Yuzhu. Gao Yuzhu was overjoyed and arrived with his luggage. Sister-in-law, what a coincidence, you and Zibao are taking this train. Uncle, Zibao shouted happily. Zibao, do you still remember your uncle? Gao Yuzhu was particularly happy. After all, Zibao had left the army for almost half a year. He put down his luggage and lifted Zibao up. Zibao, do you miss your uncle? Zibao said without hesitation, I want to. Hearing this answer, Gao Yuzhu smiled happily. Feng Qingxiu reminded Gao Yuzhu to send her luggage to her berth first. Gao Yuzhu then handed Zibao to her. Sister-in-law, I'll go over first and come back to play with Zibao later. Play, Zibao waved to him. Gao Yuzhu bought a ticket for the Datong berth sleeper car. After putting down his luggage in another car, he came over to look for Zibao. It was easy to find. When he asked the little fat man, the conductor immediately pointed out which box he was in. Seeing what he was holding, Zibao's eyes lit up. Uncle, is it for the baby? The little fat finger pointed at the paper bag in Gao Yuzhu's hand, and he could smell the fragrance. Gao Yuzhu laughed, is Zibao a greedy little cat? His nose is so sharp. Cat, Zibao raised his hands with a smile. The wrists of both hands were pressed together, and the palms were opened wide. He caught the paper package Gao Yuzhu placed on it, quickly climbed onto the berth, and sat there ready to open the paper package. Rousey. Zibao, your nose is really sharp. As soon as Gao Yuzhu finished speaking, he suddenly noticed Wang Fengqiao and the swaddled baby on the berth. After saying hello to Wang Fengqiao, he immediately came to the swaddled baby and asked, Sister-in-law, when are you? A baby? Look at my brain, my sister-in-law has no belly, so she has given birth to a boy or girl. She looks really fat, like Zibao. Wang Fengqiao stepped aside and heard Zibao shout loudly, Sister. Fat sister. Gao Yuzhu smiled and said, she is really fat, she is a fat sister. Brigadier Lu finally got his wish, he has a son and a daughter. To put it this way, her father has never seen Fu Bao since she was born, Feng Qingxiu said, pulling Wang Fengqiao to sit on the berth opposite them. Xiao Gao, is this the end of your family leave? Yes, sister-in-law. Gao Yuzhu took advantage of the situation and sat on the berth. While helping Zibao open the paper bag and give Zibao a piece of the soy sauce meat inside, he said with a smile on his face, I introduced someone to my family, and it happened to be my turn. I will go home to see you during my vacation. When I get to the army, I will report it to the superiors. I hope the political commissar will give it to me when the time comes. Since you want to make a report, then it's done. Congratulations, congratulations, Feng Qingxiu smiled. When you get married, although we don't have any good things to give you, we can still put together some daily necessities for you. Gao Yuzhu grinned behind his ears. This time I went home, my comrades helped me a lot, and Brigadier Lu gave me the most. Dad, Zibao licked the meat and took a hard bite. As soon as he heard the words Brigadier Lu, he knew it was his father. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 755. Feng Qingxiu said, yes, we have a father. We can see him when we return to the army. Are you happy? Happy. Dad, Dad, Dad. Gao Yuzhu couldn't help but said, Zibao has such a good memory. Not only does he remember me, he even remembers the name of his father, Brigadier Lu. How can a child of this age remember so many things? Zibao, what's wrong with your head, Long? As he spoke, Gao Yuzhu touched his head. Guagua, Zibao heard this word for the first time, but it did not affect his answer to the question, baby is so smart. The baby is very smart, just as confident as ever. Feng Qingxiu looked at the sky and pretended not to hear. Until now, she didn't know who this child looked like. he was very arrogant and had a good memory. He could remember both the good and bad things that others said about him. Not necessarily. At least, he never said he was naughty or a bad guy. After hearing Zibeo's words, Gao Yuzha stared for a long time, and finally laughed out loud, "This Zibeo." The words were a little too modest, but they were also true. Feng Qingxiu didn't want everyone to always praise Zibeo until his tail was raised to the sky, so she quickly changed the subject. "Xiao Gao, what's going on with your partner? Do you want to wait until next year to get married?" Gao Yuzha's hand that was originally touching Zibeo's head turned to the back of his own head and scratched it, and said, "Getting married? Let's wait until the political review is passed. If the political review is passed, I will see which comrade in the army has family leave next year and borrow 20. I will go home in the next day and arrange the wedding. This way, I can rest assured, my parents can rest assured, and my partner can live peacefully at home." As for the specific situation of Hudani, Gao Yuzha did not hide it. "My partner's name is Hudani. She lived in our village a few years ago. She and her husband live not far from our home. They often help my parents with work. They are both good people. It's a pity that good people don't live long. Her husband slipped and fell from the mountain while carrying logs and died. She was left with a 3-year-old daughter. Her husband's family had no conscience. They said that a loser wasted food at home, so her parents-in-law and uncle-in-law killed her. They were kicked out of the house and left to fend for themselves. My parents took Danny and my mother in, and I thought it was quite appropriate, so I went home to see them." Gao Yuzha did not dislike Hudani's status as a widow, nor did he care that she brought a daughter who was called a dragster by her husband's family. After all, they had all been willing to marry a good prostitute before, let alone a widow. Besides, being a widow was not what Hudani wanted. After hearing this, Feng Qingxiu admired Gao Yuzha's broad-mindedness and said with a smile, "Having a good character, living a down-to-earth life, and being able to treat the elders and aunties at home well when you are not at home are more important than anything else. Danny is a few years younger than me, and she is quite nice." Gao Yuzhu himself was very satisfied. Zibeo felt that eating meat was very strenuous and not as delicious as her mother's cooking, so she stuffed the half-eaten meat with saliva into Feng Qingxiu's mouth and called to Gao Yuzhu, "Uncle, let's play." "Hi. Okay, Uncle will take you to play." Gao Yuzhu originally thought that he would be alone until he returned to the army, but he never expected to meet Feng Qingxiu and Zibeo. With such a festive little guy like Zibeo accompanying him, there was really endless joy along the way. Laughter. Lu Xiaoneng and Lin Yufan got off the bus 5 days earlier than them, which made them reluctant to leave. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 756. When Feng Qingxiu sent them off, she specifically asked the two elders for their contact addresses. Zibeo will be 3 years old in the new year. Then I will enlighten him and teach him to write letters to the 2 professors. Lin Yufan was very happy. It's very good. Even if it's a ghost painting, I like it. Lu Xiaoneng said to Feng Qingxiu, Zibeo is very smart. Parents, don't waste his talent. You can also leave us your contact address and send some books to Zibeo when we return to the capital. I know the environment where your troops are located is harsh, the conditions are difficult, and it is an autonomous region for ethnic minorities. The most lacking thing is books. After exchanging contact addresses, the 2 elders got off the car with their luggage. Zibeo seemed to have noticed something in the box, and suddenly ran out and was about to follow him out, but was hugged by Feng Qingxiu. Grandpa, Grandma, Zibeo cried loudly. A child's heart is particularly pure and sensitive, and anyone who is truly kind to him will be able to feel it. Grandpa and Grandma are home. Feng Qingxiu held him close to the window. The little guy lay on the glass window with his face pressed against it. He waved to Lu Xiaoneng and Lin Yufan, who had already gotten out of the car, and kept mumbling. "It's all tears." Lin Yufan turned around suddenly and saw Zibao's face crushed by the glass. She wished she could drop her luggage and return to the car. Lu Xiaoneng grabbed Lin Yufan and said, okay, I know where they live, and it's not like we have no chance to see them again. How come you have become like Zibao? Didn't you say that when we retire, you will just walk around, come around and see the great mountains and rivers? I will retire to accompany you in 2 years, and we will also go to the army to see Zibao. Lin Yufan sighed, why can't we retreat now? We are not young anymore. Lifespan 70 years, and you will enter your 70s in a few years. The country needs us and the next generation needs us. How can we just retreat? Feng Qingxiu didn't know about the conversation between Lu Xiaoneng and Lin Yufan. To be honest, she had learned a lot of knowledge during these days of contact with the second elder. The second elder was really a role model in the academic world and did not stop imparting his knowledge to her just because she was not his student. To her, she especially appreciated Feng Qingxiu's behavior of learning all the time. In the next few days, Gao Yuzhu helped play with Zibao, and Wang Fengqiao took care of Fuebao. Apart from feeding Fuebao or cleaning the tableware, Feng Qingxiu basically immersed herself in a sea of books and studied tirelessly until she got off the bus. As we neared our destination, it started snowing outside. Therefore, when they get off the bus, they are all fully armed and wrapped up like bears. Wang Fengqiao has been working since she was a child. After working for most of her life, she can be considered strong. During this period, she drank Rhodiola rosea water, and she didn't have any discomfort. However, Fuebao was still young, less than 3 months old, and was a bit wilted. Wilted? With such a strong laborer like Gao Yuzhu following them, the mothers felt a lot more relaxed. Most of the luggage was carried by Gao Yuzhu. As soon as he left the train station, Zibao jumped up and shouted to a snowman with his head covered in snowflakes, "Dad!" He raised his feet and rushed over, only to fall to the ground with a plop. "Zibao, be careful," the snowman shook the snowflakes and revealed his true face. It was indeed Lu Zhang. Behind him was a person, Han Ping. The two brothers didn't know how long they had been waiting at the station. When Lu Zhang walked towards his wife and children, they left deep footprints on the spot. The surrounding snow was at least 3 or 4 inches higher than his footprints. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 757. Lu Jiang's steps were long and fast. When he arrived, he lifted up his fat son who was lying on the ground for a long time and couldn't get up with one hand. He reached out to his wife with the other hand, "Qingxiu, let me see our daughter." Feng Qingxiu held the child, who was wrapped in a cotton cloak, covering the child tightly. But Lu Zhang was so anxious that he couldn't even see the fat girl under the cloak. Feng Qingxiu said angrily, "It's windy and snowy, what should I do if it freezes her?" Lu Zhang slapped his forehead hard, making a clear sound. Zibao blinked his big eyes, pointed at Lu Zhang and said to Feng Qingxiu, Mom, Daddy, send me some money, how stupid." The children's words made the adults laugh. Wang Fengqiao said, "Lu Zhang, let us take shelter from the wind and snow first. If you have anything to say, we can talk about it when we go back. How many words can't be said? Do we have to stand in the wind?" Yes, I have troubled my aunt during this time in the capital and on the way." Lu Zhang took the luggage from Wang Fengqiao, and Han Ping came to take the luggage from Gao Yuzhu. "The mountains are blocked by heavy snow, and in the army my car can't be driven out, but I've found a guest house near the train station. Let's go to the guest house to rest first, and then we can discuss going back when the snow stops." Han Pingping and Lu Jiang finished their words and continued, "The brigade commander and I walked all the way here because I was afraid that my sister-in-law would be impatient. He set off last night and arrived this morning. He had to carry his own equipment, but he was exhausted." Before he finished speaking, Lu Jiang said, "Talk too much." Feng Qingxiu's heart was shaken, both painful and warm. She couldn't help but give Lu Jiang a look. "We can't wait for you, so we will naturally find a guest house to stay and won't wrong ourselves. It takes half a day to drive from here to the army. You too, how long did it take to walk all the way? Even if you don't feel bad about yourself, you still take care of Xiao Han. It's so cold outside, let's go back to the guest house first." Lu Jiang quickly changed the subject, fearing that his wife would continue to scold him. Feng Qingxiu gave him face and did not continue to talk about him. "When you arrive at the guest house, dust off the snowflakes on your body and drink hot water. You will feel as if you have come back to life after walking out of the wind and snow." Lu Jiang didn't expect Gao Yuzhu to come back on the same day, but there was no problem. He booked 3 rooms when he came here. He and his wife and their children would live in one room, Wang Fengqiao would live in another room, and Han Ping would live alone in one room. Just keep Han Ping company. Wang Fengqiao wisely went to another room to rest, leaving the family of 4 behind. There was no one else in the room. Lu Jiang quickly closed the door. Just as he turned around, a gust of fragrant wind hit him. His wife threw herself into his arms and hugged his neck tightly. "Jiang, we have been separated for so long, do you miss me? Thinking about it makes my heart hurt." Lu Jiang hugged her tightly and said in her ear, "There is also a Kong and a stove in the guest house, which is very warm." Zibao took off his mink hat and stomped next to his parents, switching his feet to the ground. "Dad, Dad, Dad, hug me. Hug me." The couple then remembered that the child was there and suddenly separated. Feng Qingxiu touched her cheeks. The cheeks that were cold outside turned red when the warmth came into the room. "Zibao, do you miss Dad?" Lu Jiang raised his fat son with both hands. He was a good guy. He was several kilograms heavier than when he left the army. His fat face has not changed at all, and his eyes are as smart as before. Think about it? It's so hard to think about it, it makes my heart hurt. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 758. Feng Qingxiu heard this and immediately became angry. "Lu Zibao, why do you learn to speak so quickly like adults? I have never seen him learn so quickly." Lu Zibao acted as if he hadn't heard anything. He put his arms around Lu Jiang's neck and placed his forehead against Lu Jiang's forehead. "Dad, Dad, Dad, the baby is good, the baby is smart, take care of the baby, fight with the baby, cry with the baby. Who did you fight with? Who did you beat to tears?" Lu Jiang soon understood. "Bad guy. Beat me up. I'm so cute, I'm so sweet." Thinking of his cake, Zibao suddenly burst into tears. There are thousands of changes in expressions, first proud and then frustrated, which is really funny. Zibao did a lot of great things in the capital and on the train. I can't finish them all day and night. I will tell you slowly later. Feng Qingxiu sat on the Kong and carefully checked her daughter's condition. When she saw her eyes open, he held her in his arms and said, "You, put Zibao down first, and come and see your daughter is the business. From the time she was born to now, she doesn't know who you are." Zibao heard this and patted Lu Jiang's face. "Dad, Dad, sister, fat sister. Let's go see my sister." Lu Jiang carried Zibao to the Kong, and his eyes met his daughter's big, watery eyes. The innocent eyes made Lu Jiang's heart soften. "My daughter," he couldn't help but put down Zibao and go to hug Fubao, but Zibao was unhappy and hugged his neck tightly. "Dad, my baby. I am a baby, you have to hold me." Lu Jiang said in a good voice, Dad knows that you are a baby, the eldest baby in our family. Can you let Dad hug my sister? My dad has never hugged my sister. My sister must be very sad. Zibeo knitted his brows together after hearing this. No. No, Zibeo shook his head violently and said with good reason, my sister is fat, fat girl. Feng Qingxiu said angrily, aren't you a fat brother? Aren't you a fat Zibeo? My sister is so young and you don't even let your father hug her. Your mother doesn't like Zibeo anymore. My baby, Zibeo pointed to his nose. Feng Qingxiu ignored him and looked at her daughter. Zibeo immediately slipped out of Lu Jiang's arms and nuzzled up to Feng Qingxiu, placing his two chubby hands on her legs. Mom, 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 my baby, please hug me. Hug me. Feng Qingxiu handed Fu Bao to Lu Jiang and picked up 11 Bao. After not holding him for a while, Feng Qingxiu placed him and sat next to her, wrapping her arms around him to prevent him from moving. Lu Jiang held his daughter in his arms, his eyes not only as soft as water, but also sparkling with water. Thank you, wife, I'm sorry, when Zibeo and Fubeo were born, I couldn't be by your side to take care of you. Everything it's all up to you. Even a million sorries couldn't express the guilt in his heart. We have been married for so many years, why are you talking about this? There are so many people helping me, and I have never suffered. Feng Qingxiu was worried that her husband would always continue to focus on this topic, which would inevitably ruin the atmosphere of the family reunion. Zibeo, Zibeo, go and show your dad the photos you took in the capital. Mom is very envious, and Dad must be envious too when he sees it. I'll take a photo. Zibeo climbed to the satchel placed on the Kong, opened it and rummaged inside. All the photos were put in a brown paper envelope by Feng Qingxiu, and he found them quickly. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Back to the 60s, The Struggle Career of a Charmed Wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 759. All the photos were dumped on the Kong. Zibeo waved to Lu Jiang and said grandly, come and see. The voice is loud and the momentum is strong. Feng Qingxiu looked at it and felt that Zibeo's posture was a bit like an old leader. Of course, he is far less kind and majestic than the old leader. Zibeo is young and has only a slight grasp of his form but not his spirit. It's also quite bluffing. Lu Jiang didn't care about his son. He held his daughter and sat on the Kong. He turned his head and looked at a photo that Zibeo picked up. Hey, there is a foreigner in the photo. Zibeo, who is this person? Nana, after Zibeo answered, he picked up the photo of the old leader and him, Grandpa. Lu Jiang read them one by one, and the more he looked, the more surprised he became. The photos included most of the top leaders in the capital, so he held his fat daughter in one hand and touched his fat son's head with the other. Boy, I am 100 times better than you. I have never seen the old leader up close or spoken a word to the old leader, and you actually sat on the old leader's lap to eat. Surprised, Lu Jiang couldn't help but feel a little envious. The leader was so brilliant that he always admired him, but because of his low military rank and low position, he had no chance to talk to the old leader. Grandpa, Zibeo clicked on a group photo of the old leader, Lu's father, Wang Xinchen, Lu Shui, and others. He clicked on each person to call him Grandpa, which was so cute. Finally, his fat finger stopped at Lu's father and the old leader. In the group photo, Grandpa. Lu Jiang was extremely surprised. Dad was received by the old leader. Feng Qingxiu smiled and said, I'm about to tell you these things. There are many interesting things happening in the capital, most of which are related to Zibeo. Your son is really a treasure. Please wait for me to tell you slowly. Lu Jiang moved to Feng Qingxiu's side. It's okay, we have plenty of time. Feng Qingxiu took her daughter over to feed her. Just as she was about to speak, she saw Zibao's eager eyes. She dropped the photo, quickly crawled over and pointed at Feng Qingxiu's chest. "Grandma, mother, drink grandma, I want it, drink grandma." Lu Zhang grabbed him and said, "Zibao, my sister is young. Let her drink it. Dad will make butter tea for you, okay?" No, Zibao's answer was completely different from usual, squirming around. "I want to drink grandma." Feng Qingxiu's reaction was to turn her back. Fu Bao closed his eyes and sucked his own milk in big mouthfuls, with no intention of giving it to his brother. Zibao cried loudly, "Grandma, I want to drink grandma, drink grandma." After being separated from his son for so long, Lu Zhang couldn't bear to shout to him, "This child has been weaned for a long time, why does he suddenly want to eat? Wife, how about you give him a few bites? You brat, where did you get such good luck?" Lu Zhang was deeply jealous. His son was young and could blatantly ask for food, but he couldn't compete with his daughter for food rations. Feng Qingxiu didn't want to indulge her son, so she said, "You bake a banana for him to eat? We all live together, so we can't turn on a small stove for him. He pooped on the train in the past 2 days, and he couldn't poop out. He was so anxious that he cried." Zibao covered his face, seeming a little shy. Lu Zhang laughed and watched his wife reach into her luggage bag and take out a handful of bananas. He broke off one and heated it before handing it to Zibao. Zibao had to take one in each hand before he was willing to eat. After eating, he yawned, leaving the couple with a clean space, because when he lay on his back and fell asleep, Fu Bao also fell asleep after eating and drinking. Chapter 10, Please vote. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 760. Feng Qingxiu was packing up the photos scattered on the Kong, and Lu Zhang hugged her from behind. The room was very warm. She had taken off her military coat and was only wearing a cashmere sweater. His chest and her back were pressed together, and waves of heat came from behind, which was better than the stove in the room. "Honey, quickly focus on me." Waves of hot breath blew behind her ears, causing Feng Qingxiu to tilt her head. "What are you learning from Zibao?" The coquettish tone made her feel uncomfortable. "Shall I learn from Zibao?" Lu Zhang immediately turned his wife around and kissed her hard, making her cheeks thin and red, her eyes confused, panting, and he touched her red lips with his rough index finger. "Only me you can do this, even Zibao can't." Feng Qingxiu slumped in his arms, her beautiful eyes filled with anger. "Why did Zibao offend you?" 11 Bao just offended me, and he offended me quite a lot." Feng Qingxiu's eyes widened and she looked very angry at him. She racked her brains and couldn't figure out where Zibao offended him. "What nonsense are you talking about? When I was playing with Zibao just now, no one kissed him like you, the father." Lu Jiang's lips were close to her ear. "Did I lie?" "I didn't lie. I told the truth. The brat has never left you since the moment he was born, but I am always facing you. Parting. He sleeps with his wife day and night. How can he not be jealous? I'm almost dying of jealousy." Having said it so clearly, could Feng Qingxiu not have any doubts in her heart? "It was sweet and funny in my heart, and finally turned into a glare and threw it at him. Do you think you are a child? Seeing you, Zibao finally remembered to be jealous of Fu Bao, and now you are here to be jealous of Zibao jealousy. Are you only 3 years old this year instead of more than 30? "Yes, I'm only 3 years old, come and comfort me," Lu Zhang answered matter-of-factly. It turns out that Lu Zibao's shameless character was inherited from the man in front of him. Feng Qingxiu opened her eyes, and with a change of thought, she stood up on tiptoes, kissed his left and right cheeks, then hooked his neck and pulled his head down, and kissed his forehead. Okay, this is how she comforted Zibao, who was very happy. Just because Zibao was happy, it didn't mean that Lu Zhang was happy. He was even more jealous. This shows how happy Zibao, the brat, is usually. You are not allowed to kiss Zibao or Fuebao from now on. Lu Jiang suddenly felt as if his children were here to collect debts, and with red eyes, he warned and warned, you are only allowed to kiss me, do you hear me? Jealous men will go crazy. Feng Qingxiu nodded her head, I heard it, I heard it. Whether she heard it or not, it was a matter of the future. Faced with a pair of crying babies, how could she not kiss, touch and comfort them? Even if a child is jealous, cut it. Lu Jiang put his forehead against hers and looked at hers, hearing is not enough, you must remember. Noticing the blazing fire of lust in her husband's eyes, Feng Qingxiu reminded, it's broad daylight, you have to pay attention. She changed the subject and ignored Lu Jiang's request because she couldn't do it. Zibao was so cute and Fuebao was so small. She couldn't control her loving heart. The words in broad daylight were like a bucket of ice water pouring down from Lu Jiang's head, which chilled his heart. His face suddenly fell down. Before he could accuse the world of meddling, he heard a knock on the door.